There is so much misunderstanding and superstition about what happens to people who commit suicide when they arrive in the next life that I want to say what we know without question to be true. We have many, many statements from people who are now living in the afterlife about what happens to people who take their own lives when they transition to the next plane of life. They all say the same things about it, with no discrepancies among their statements. I'm going to explain to you what they tell us. First and foremost, there is no judgment or condemnation of people who take their own life. There is no such thing as a hell. That's an awful mythology the church developed in the first centuries of the first millennium that was never true. It is a tribal, primitive mythology that was created in a tribal, primitive time. It's dying out today, but must be completely eradicated because of the harm it has done to people. If you want more about the hell myth, go to one of my websites at 30ce.com. That's 30ce.com. People who take their own lives are met with great compassion and understanding. They are ministered to and counseled because of the problems they had on the earth plane and the anguish they suffered. But they arrive in the afterlife in the same distraught state they were in when they were on the earth plane. Their personal issues don't go away. When they arrive on the next plane of life, they meet with their loved ones and people whose role on the next plane of life is to counsel people who've left the earth plane. But no one criticizes, no one judges. There are no harsh words, only compassion. But it is not a happy time for these individuals who end their lives, or for those who meet them on the other side. There's great sadness that these people have ended their time on earth. People who transition off of this plane to the next plane normally experience joyful reunions when they pass through normal circumstances. The meeting for someone who has stopped life prematurely on the earth plane is a time of sadness. If your loved one has taken their own life, you must know that they're healthy and fine, with no judgment or condemnation. They're filled with remorse and guilt. Now they have a different perspective on the issues and their lives, and they realize what they've lost. They know your anguish and your grief, and they are very sorry for causing it. The most important messages we hear from suicides again and again are, I love you, I'm fine, and I'm terribly, terribly sorry for the pain I've caused you. As for whether the suicide solved the person's problems, it didn't. The person doesn't leave the problems behind. People are the same when they transition to the next plane of life. They still have the same worries, anxieties, traumas, fears, regrets, feelings of anger, and all of the other baggage they had when they were on the earth plane. The people who were involved in the problem are still on the earth plane. The problems with them are still there, and the person still has experiences with the same painful emotions. They must work through all of the painful issues, but now they can't resolve the issues with people on the earth plane and come to the end of the difficulties with greater understanding, personal strength, joy, and love for people around them. And no one on the earth plane can celebrate their triumphs with them in love and joy when they overcome the problems or grow out of them. But there are more crushing events for people who terminate their lives when it isn't because of intolerable physical suffering. When anyone leaves the earth plane, they lose the separation of minds that is part of Earth's school. We, on the earth plane, don't know each other's thoughts and feelings mind to mind. We don't read each other's minds or feel each other's feelings. But that's only part of life on the earth plane. The earth plane is the plane of separations. Our minds are separate. But the separation falls away on the next plane of life. People know each other's thoughts and feel each other's feelings, just as they would if they were their own. When someone feels sad, the person with them feels sad as well. Our minds are one there. Suicides especially leave people still on the earth plane with feelings of guilt. It must have been my fault. I should have seen it coming. I must have been a terrible father. The act of ending life through suicide leaves tremendous burdens on the survivors on the earth plane. The person who takes their own life feels every emotion all the people on the earth plane feel, as though they were standing with the person and being one with them in their mind. That isn't a punishment. It's just a fact of life on the next plane. All the thoughts and feelings are shared as though they belong to everyone. And the anguish is compounded because the loved ones who are already on the next plane of life, who have already passed, must now endure experiencing those grief-stricken thoughts and words of the people on the earth plane they love. They now feel the depth of anguish their loved ones feel. They suffer their own sadness because the person left earth needlessly, and they feel the immense grief their loved ones are feeling on the earth plane. Suicide is not a solution for problems. It instead creates new, greater, unresolvable problems for the person who chooses suicide as a path and for those around them. But there's a greater problem we must address when we talk about suicides. Our materialistic society has few compassionate safety nets for despondent people who can't see beyond the anguish of their circumstances. Most people have no source of comfort they can go to. When we're sick, we go to a doctor. When we need money, we go to a bank. When we need a new porch, we go to a builder. These resources are readily available, and people consult them immediately without question when a need arises. I have a need, I know who to go to, I contact them within 5 minutes, and the need is resolved. There are virtually no places or people for someone to go to when they feel depressed, hopeless, and suicidal. Who can a person call and talk to on the spot? Families have broken down and are most often judgmental about personal issues. Churches have lost their sense of mission in the physical realm. They're now social clubs. Counselors require formal appointments and fees and have a sterile approach that does not freely give love. Where can people in situations that seem hopeless and unresolvable turn to? Right now, at the worst possible moment, for compassionate, warm, loving comfort, nurturing, a soothing voice, an understanding tone, and acceptance and willingness to listen. There are over 385,000 Christian churches in the United States alone. There are over 3,700 synagogues and over 2,100 mosques. What a spiritual uplifting flood of loving energy we would experience in the United States if all of these religious bodies would pack up the hymnals, shut down the special interest group meetings, take out the pews and put in chairs in circles where people could share openly. What if all of these contacts people easily find would stop limiting spiritual activities to an hour and a half of rituals each week, and just ask every congregation member every week to reach out to all the people in need in the community, the depressed, the lonely, the suicidal, the destitute, the hungry, people whose lives are miserable for whatever reason. Why isn't the phone number any suicidal person calls immediately when feeling despondent the number of a church, synagogue, or mosque? Why don't people feel calling one of those numbers will assuredly let them hear a loving, compassionate voice that would help them stay on the earth plane and endure the struggle? As long as our society sees personal needs as the suffering person's problem, as their lack of initiative or industry, or their class in society, or even their race or nationality, we will not have a compassionate, unconditionally loving people and places where those whose lives are broken can go. Suicide is not a mental problem, it's a society problem. At its root, society today is made up of self-absorbed, segregated people because of a spiritual vacuum. People don't know who they are in eternity, what their relationship is to others on the earth plane, and what their relationship is to those living on the next plane of life. We have to bring this message of need for caring, compassionate love for others to humankind. We are spiritual beings, one with each other and the higher power, on earth to learn to be loving and compassionate. We are our brother's keeper. Our mission is to help make everyone else happy, peaceful, and joyful by loving them overtly, demonstrably. We should be showing our love for everyone we encounter, Any discussion of suicides must end with the truth that people choose suicide as a path to resolve personal anguish. It is their solution to their problems. It's just the worst possible solution. But it's the only solution the person knows about and has available. As long as we don't provide alternative solutions that are more attractive, we will continue to have tragedies like suicides. To make suicide the less attractive solution to life's problems, we must have people and organizations who are known by all to be without question available right now to show understanding, give love, and devote the moments of their lives at the instant of contact to helping people feel loved, understood, and able to choose different solutions to their problems. They're in the yellow pages. The person in anguish just has to pick up the phone and call their number. These people and organizations that people contact must know we are eternal beings having a physical experience, that life's challenges are part of the lessons we're learning, that there are helpers, guides, and loved ones on the other side who are helping, and that they are never alone in their struggles. They must be able to help anyone who contacts them understand these truths. Until society changes to have alternative, loving, personal solutions widely available, that everyone knows are immediately available and how they can contact them, the problem of suicide will not be resolved. Society will change when people realize we are spiritual beings, one with each other, who should live together in peace, love, and joy.